Okay, before moving on, it's time to do some cleanup. I just wanted to show you also that I went ahead and performed some mirroring of vertex maps, this time using the tool that we've used before to mirror. You know how to use this one already, so I'm just going to show you I mirrored weights from this side of spine 05 onto the other side because they were not even. I have done some edits that I didn't perform on this side since symmetry was off. So those are done. I also mirrored the right clavicle onto its opposing weight map, and I mirrored the right upper arm also to this side, just to make sure I have the formations identical on both sides of the character. So now that that's done, let's do some cleanup here in our deformers tab, because we have a bunch of stuff here that we would definitely want to order a little bit. So we have the normalizing folder for the harness, some influences, weight maps. So let's put first our weight maps somewhere. I mean, not weight maps, our weight containers. So we already have a folder for the weight containers that comprise the face of the character, as you can see here. Let's put the others in another deform folder. Let's call this one deform folder other weight containers. Okay, we're gonna put it with this folder, and let's bring in our weight containers right there, and these two guys and this guy. Okay, perfect. So now we have some additional things here. Two morph influences. Let's bring those into our morph influences folder. You could also order this so that you have more influences. In this case, we have some for the face and some for the body. I don't know. I'll let you decide. It also depends how many you have. We don't have that many morphs, but once things start to get a little bit more complicated, you can just put in here a few more deform folders and order things up in a better way. Let's just leave it at that for now. We have these influences, shield, teeth, eyes. So let's put those in two new folders. Let's make one, they make another one. And this one we're gonna call the form folder. Let's call this props. And this one is going to be the form folder other ace, other parts of the character that would be. So the one for the shield goes in props, and these four go in ace. Okay, so now we have a few deform folders, some normalizing folders. Do we need to change the order of these guys? Well, not really. Me, as a matter of habit, I just tend to move my morph influences down to the bottom, because usually, at least in other applications, you usually first morph your mesh and then you deform it, because if you do it the other way around, you're going to see your mesh come back to its default pose when any morph is triggered. But Modo doesn't really suffer from that. I'm just doing it out of habit, really. And that looks a lot better. Now we have a better setup here. And we're going to do some more cleanup at the end when we're done with all the rigging for the character. But for now, this seems to be enough. So let's leave it at that. Let's make sure that nothing is left here in the character's hierarchy that could be left behind. Everything looks okay. So I guess we can continue with the rest of the items in the character's mesh group locator. Okay, before we move on, a small addendum here. There's one little thing we need to fix on the harness that is actually going to be quite fast, but I want to show you what it is because you might notice it and be wondering what happened. You will notice that there's this gap in our harness, and if you go to setup mode, the gap is not there. Okay, so you might be wondering, okay, what happened? The thing is, you gotta remember that on the vertex maps that we are using for our harness here, we added the weight maps for the scapula rigs that we created. So the thing is, those rigs are currently pulling back on the vertices influenced by these weight maps. I can prove it to you by grabbing this guy, which is our pusher. Well, the mover, actually. Yeah, it's a pusher right here. And if I move it back, you can see it's pulling on the harness too, because it's using those weight maps. But it's not pulling on the back of the character. As you can see, the back of the character remains undisturbed. And the reason is, the back of the character is rigged to use these capsules as the objects that will determine which areas of the back get deformed. So since the capsules are right now inside of the character, there's nothing being deformed right there. If we go to a part of the animation where the capsules are outside, then we do see the back of the character being deformed. Okay, so how do we create the same rig for the harness? It's actually quite simple. Let's go to our advanced deformations schematic, and I'm going to bring in the ammo strap mesh, and I'm going to double click on it to expose all of the influences that are related to it. So this is the influences that were created by the binding operation we did, and as you can see, we have all the influences that we worked on our deformers tab, and among those we have these scapula general influences. So these are the ones we need to fix. So I'm gonna hide all the others. Okay, just need to hide those, and we're gonna use these. And as you can see there, you already have a wire going somewhere over here. Let's get close to that. And it's the same deformers that we're using to deform these guys. So the big difference we have over here is that we have the same thing going on for the body of the character, except that these influences are using the fall off that we are using to determine when the vertices get moved. And these fall offs are the ones that are rigged over here and all that stuff. So all we need to do is to fix the problem on the harness of the character is use the same fall off for the scapula general influence. Okay, so let's do that. Let's move this guy around. Let's do this. We're gonna take this guy, move it down here. Okay, and this guy up here. So all we need to do, keep an eye on this side. First, the right side of the character. Let's connect the same fall off to the fall offs channel, and as you can see, that fixes this side. And now we just connect the fall off to the fall offs channel of our scapula on the harness, and that fixes that side. So that's fixed, because now these transforms are only going to be influencing the mesh when the fall off reaches them, which is not the case in the rest pose. Okay, that will happen when the character goes and does these movements. Then you will see that we're pushing vertices on the back of the character and also on our harness. Okay, so let's for example, let's go to these deformers. If I turn off our deformer for the scapula on this part of the harness, you can immediately see the difference. So they are working when they should. Okay, and we have nice deformations right there. So that's all we needed to do to get rid of the gap that we had on the harness of the character. And now that that's fixed, we can keep moving on. Okay, welcome back. And I wanted to show you a few more changes that I did on the weighting for the harness and our friend here for his all his equipment. What I did is I basically worked on the weighting on the clavicle joint. Let me show you what that looks like. Where's the right clavicle? Here it is. So I added a lot more weight on this side of the clavicle and also some of these parts, and that really helped a lot keep the clavicle movement reflected on the mesh. And it also helped reduce a little bit the influence of the upper arm on the harness, so that when the arm comes up, the harness doesn't get pulled that much towards the arm. So that helped a lot with this character. It also keep a little bit of influence on the upper arm, so when the arm closes in, it pushes a little bit the harness to the side. So that also helps. Overall, it's looking good. So now that we're done with this mesh, let's take care of some of the other meshes that we have here in our geo group. Let's see, I think we could do the ammo meshes that we have, which are these guys right there. Okay, now the thing with these guys is that we don't want to bind them to the skeleton, because these objects, which look like ammo shells to me, should definitely not be deforming. They should just be attached to this strap somehow. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna find a way of attaching each one of these to our strap without deforming them. And it's actually gonna be not that complex. We just need to use some constraints on them and we'll be set. So let's take care of this one, for example, R01. Let's hide the rest for now. So we want this guy to be attached to this particular part of the of our harness mesh. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a locator, place it over here, attach it to that mesh, and then constrain our geo to that locator. Sounds about right. It takes a little bit more than that to set it up, but that's going to be the main idea. So I can get rid of my palettes for now, and let's create the rig for this. So I'm gonna go first and create a new group locator for our character, and we're gonna call this one group. Let's call this what, it's not accessories, but what I'm gear rigs. Okay, and then we're gonna create another one that I'm gonna put inside of the gear rigs group and call this one ammo. Okay, so now we have somewhere where to place all of our stuff. So let's begin by creating a locator. This is, I wonder what this is. Oh, it's the former locator for the shield. Let's make that smaller, and we're gonna later on hide it. So let's create a new locator, and what I'm gonna do with it is first let's bring it over to the ammo rig group, and let's do the following. We need to constrain it over to this part of the strap, and if I try to find the best attachment point, I would say it would be probably on this edge right here. Okay, that's where I want to have my locator attached. So what edge is this? Let's take a look. Let's go to our lists, and let's see what edge this is. It's edge 29 to 61. So you might want to write that down, and at this point, whenever you are dealing with geometry locations such as this, try to keep little notes of where you're going to be attaching stuff to. Okay, so that means it's an edge that goes from vertex 29 to vertex 61 on this mesh. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go back to our locator. Here it is. And I'm going to shift select the ammo strap mesh, and with compensation turned off, we're gonna apply a edge position constraint to the locator. Okay, And you're going to see the locator jump to, well, at this point, a random location on the mesh. So now we need to go to the properties for this geometry constraint and enter those numbers that you copied over here as index A and index B. So we're going to enter 29 and 61. Okay, and the locator will jump right on that edge. Now at this point, it's sitting down there at the beginning of the edge, and we want to move him up towards the middle. So you can use this edge percentage channel to move him over to where you need him. It doesn't have to be super exact, but you want to try to nail for either the location where the ammo makes contact with the strap, or somewhere that looks kind of like that will be the point. So I'm going to leave it here. Let's make him smaller. Oh, actually, a lot smaller than that. Yeah, that's better. Okay. And I'm going to call this guy CNS because it's a constraint right side ammo 01. Okay. Now, I cannot just go and use this locator as it is, and I'm just going to dynamically parent my mesh onto the locator, because this locator is, at this point, is going to follow the mesh. As you can see, he's moving. But there is a problem. If you can see here, the locator has his y-axis pointing up, okay? And as the character rotates, the locator stays with the y-axis pointing up. This means that as our character does some rotations like this, our ammo is going to stay horizontal. It's not going to follow the rotations of the character. So we need to fix that. And the way we do that is we use another couple of locators that we're gonna are gonna control these guys' rotations. Okay, so we need to add two more locators. So let's add one, bring it over to the same ammo group, and duplicate it a second time. Okay, and let's take this one and do exactly the same. I'm gonna its position constrain it to the same mesh and set it to the same vertices, 29 to 61. Okay, but this time I'm going to bring the edge percentage down to 0. So it's going to sit right there at the end of the edge. You don't see it. It looks like it appears to be floating in space, but that's because the mesh is using a subdivision surface. So if I get rid of that, you'll see that it's actually right there at the vertex position. So now that we have that, what we're going to do is I'm going to turn this guy into a little pyramid. Okay, and I'm gonna call him, this guy's name is going to be up vector right side ammo 01. Okay, actually he's not the up vector. He's going to be the look at target, so I'm just going to call him locator. The up vector is going to be our next locator. And this guy, I'm going to show you what this is going to do. We're going to take first this locator and point it, select the second locator we just created, and we're going to create a direction constraint. Okay, so you're going to see it flip like this, and it's okay if you leave the z-axis pointing towards this guy. So now this guy has a direction to point to. It doesn't matter if this guy just doesn't rotate. That's fine. Let's just make sure our locator there is going to rotate with the character. It's moving, it's moving. Yeah, now it's rotating. And that's what we want, right? However, you can see that it's rotating in a weird way. It's keeping the z-axis pointing up, but the y-axis is rotating that way, so that's going to rotate our shell again. So we need to lock that down. And the way to do that is by using an up vector for the lookat constraint. So this time the lookat is going to determine which way the y-axis on our main locator is going to be pointing to. So you can point the y-axis either towards this edge or towards this edge. In this case, I'm going to pick this one so that the x-axis is pointing up. That's just something I want to do. There's no really any technical reason behind it. I just prefer to see the x-axis pointing up so it's easier to read instead of going into the mesh. But that's just me. You could pick either one of those and you should be okay. So let's take a look at what edge that is. So in this case, we're going to see is 80 to 116. Okay, that's the vertex numbers that are related to this edge. So let's go back to our last locator. Where is he? That's right there. And we're going to, again, edge constrain it to those edges, 80 to 116. And let's put him more or less at the same height as the locator that we are constraining, this guy. And we're going to, again, give him a different shape. I'm going to leave this one as a box. It's going to be a little cube right there. Like so. Okay. So now we're going to go to this guy's. Oh, let's rename it since we're at it. This guy is the up vector, right? Ammo 01. Okay. And now we can go to this guy. Let's press on the plus icon right beside its name to expose any channel modifiers related to this item. And we're going to find here our direction constraint. Okay, so we select that. Let's go to its properties. Let's shift select our little cube we just made. And in the direction constraint, click on the assign up vector button. And you will see the y-axis immediately point towards that item. Okay. And what you get is now our locator here, pay attention to it. Let's select this guy. Will be completely locked down. And as you can see, it's always pointing correctly as if it was really tangent to the surface of the strap mesh. And he's going to stay like that no matter what the character does. All right. So all that's left now is to take our mesh item. Let's go into setup mode. So we're going to take a little ammo shell, shift select the locator, turn on compensation, and add a dynamic parent. Let's come out of setup mode and let's check out the character's movements again. There you go. That looks just fine. Okay. Another way of doing this would have been, for example, if you are certain that in this area there is only one joint that is influencing your mesh. It could be the case, for example, with other types of characters. If you're doing robots or things like those where you don't really have to worry about blending the formations, you could just attach this mesh to a weight container and then use something else to drive that weight container through a general influence. But in this case, because we're dealing with blended weights on this mesh, it's better to create this kind of little rig that we have here. Okay, so now that you understood the principle, we would need to do all the other ammo meshes just exactly in the same way. You're gonna need 3 locators per ammo item and set them up, but you do exactly the same steps with followed so far. You would come here, select the edge that you're going to be rigging onto. Place your locator here, place another one up here, place another one on the parallel edge in either direction depending which one you decided to use. Place your third locator there, constrain everything, and that's pretty much it. I don't think I have to keep you watching as I do all of the other ammo items. I'm just gonna pause the video right here and show you the end result once I'm done. So see you in a second. Okay, I'm done with the rigging of these guys. As you can see, all of them are identical rigs. They're pretty much exactly the same for all of them on either side of the character. So we have here our ammo objects, which I've already dynamically parented to each one of these locators, and all the rigs for these locators are here on the group C ammo group locator. And I did change the shape of these guys, the up vectors. They were cubes before, so just to keep it consistent with the rest of the rig, where I've used the up vectors to be shaped like pyramids, I've changed the shapes on these guys, and I changed back these other guys to cubes. And that's it. I'll just show you what that looks like in terms of our character moving. As you can see, they all follow pretty well. So everything's okay with these items. So we can continue with some other mesh items here from our list of things to do. Let's keep going.